everybody and welcome to this video on number systems. In this video, we're having a look at irrational numbers. So in the previous videos, we've looked at what are the different number systems and how do we define them. And in this one here, we're going to specifically look at irrational numbers. So irrational numbers are numbers that we can call surds also. So they're unsimplified roots, basically. So something like the square root of a non-perfect square would be an irrational number. You would find that if you type this into your calculator and if you had a look at the decimal, it would be non-recurring, as in there would be no there'd be no repeats in digits, and it would be non-terminating. So it wouldn't stop, but in your case, if you're looking at a calculator, it will eventually stop because your calculator only has so much space on the screen. But in general, they're non-terminating and non-recurring. So if you say, what is the square root of, say, 3, you're going to get a non-recurring and non-terminating decimal, and that is an irrational number. Similarly, the square root of 5, the square root of 21, because 3, 5, and 21 are all not perfect squares. The cube root of a non-perfect cube would also be an irrational number. So the cube root of 4, the cube root of 5, the cube root of 10. And in general, any nth root of a non-perfect n power. So if you can't write it as some rational number to the power of n, then that is also not a rational number. Okay, so we have to be able to write it as a rational number to the power of n if we're taking the nth root. So the 10th root of 8 or the 4th root of 7 are irrational numbers. Okay, so let us have a look at some exercise that we can do with irrational numbers. So some of the questions are like, between which two integers? So we know integers are the negative, well, you should think of them as the negative from negative infinity. So like say minus 10, minus 8, minus 9, minus 1, 0, 1, 2. They counting numbers, so there's no decimals or fractions, and they go on to infinity. So those are the integers. So between which two integers do the following irrational numbers lie? So we know that these numbers are irrational. Like for example, the first one is a square root of a non-perfect square, and we want to know between which integers. So what I'm going to do is first have a little think about what are your perfect, well, because here we're dealing with the square root, what are your perfect squares? So I'm just going to write the perfect squares here. You should know them. So 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 3 squared is, and 5 squared is 25, 36, and so on. Those are our perfect squares. Now we're going to look at 3. Where does 3 lie? So 3 is greater than 1, but it is less than 4. So we identify perfect squares on either one of the one. Then we're going to take the square root of everything. So the square root of 1, the square root of 3, the square root of 4. Since 1 is a perfect square, the square root of 1 is 1. Then we have 3, and the square root of 4 is 2. So there we have it. The square root of 3 lies between 1 and 2. Let's do the second question. So 32, again, we want to look for the square root. So we're going to look at our perfect squares again. So 32 lies somewhere in the middle between 25 and 36. So it's greater than 25, but it is less than 36. So now we take the square root of everything. And the square root of 25 is 5 because it's a perfect square. And the square root of 36 is 6. Oops, 6 because it is a perfect square. So 32 lies between 5 and 6. Okay, so let's have a look at one very last example. This one's different. We're looking for what two integers does the cube root of 4 lie between. So instead of writing out our perfect squares, we're going to write out our perfect cube. So 1 cubed is 1, 2 cubed is 8, 3 cubed is 27. And I guess you could go on, but we can see we're only looking for 4, so between these. So 4 lies between 1 and 8. 4 lies somewhere between 1 and 8. So we can write that 4 is greater than 1 and less than 8. Now, instead of taking the square root, we're going to take the cube root of everything, because now we want to know between which numbers does the cube root of 4. And the cube root of 1 is 1, and the cube root of 4 is our irrational number, and the cube root of 8 is 2. So the cube root of 4 lies between 1 and 2. I hope that you've understood this video on irrational numbers, what are irrational numbers, how to identify them, and how to do some exercise related to them. Please watch our other videos for more information on the number systems.